Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shadoe Davis Show. This is Wednesday, June the 3rd, 2026. We're out again in all of the social media. So we're on Facebook. We're on YouTube tonight. We're on Twitch even. I know, right? We're on X. We're on Telegram, as we are every single night. The Shadoe at Night community on Telegram, all those awesome all-access Nighthawks there. Very welcoming crew. Don't forget to go ahead and join that group. We're on Rumble tonight and, of course, the homepage, shadoedavis.com. And the reason for that is we have a special guest on the show tonight. I always assume when I start a show every single night that there's at least one person out there who may not know everything that we know. And I also assume that there are different people out there watching with different levels of knowledge about what's actually going on in the world. Some people think it's a government problem. Some people think that it goes all the way to hell. Some people think it's aliens. Other people think it's the royalty. Some people say it's the Knights Templar, the Illuminati. Everybody's got their own opinions. So when we talk about Universal Ostrich Farm, and there's going to be some people right now saying to themselves, yeah, we know everything that happened. I know for a fact that there's going to be some people who are unclear on what happened there. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight with our guest, Aly Turnbull. But we're also going to talk about something that has been bothering me for quite some time. And I understand the destruction of over 300 ostriches was incredibly harmful, not just to the family, even though to them it would be the most harmful, to people all across the country who witnessed this and watched this happen over the course of a month and a half late last year near Edgewood, British Columbia. But when an armed force comes onto your property and just takes it over, that is cause for alarm. Not just concern, that's cause for alarm. That's something I've been trying to point out for the last few months. People were not alarmed enough about that as they were about the ostriches. And I totally understand that you guys were alarmed that CFIA could order the RCMP and whatever hired goon squad to come in and kill over 300 ostriches in the course of one night using over 1,000 shots. I get that. That is completely upsetting. But what about your home actually being taken over by an armed force in Canada? Listen to the words of our national anthem, True North, Strong and Free. Really? Look what they're doing or trying to do right now with free speech in this country. We've got news on that coming up later on. So we're going to bring on our guest, Aly Turnbull, who's cousins, actually, with Katie Pasitny. Of course, you guys know Katie. And she's going to tell everything that happened from her perspective, because she and her parents own property directly adjacent. We're going to show you two on a map, directly adjacent to Universal Ostrich Farm, and they had their property occupied as well. We're coming right back with Aly Turnbull here on the Shadoe Davis Show right after this. Hello, Aly. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Hi.
So, how are you after all of this? Is it still PTSD?
It's still PTSD. I'm not very good, actually. I am having a hard time readjusting to life after what happened. I'm having a hard time just sort of navigating the world, knowing that that could happen. And I have a lot of anxiety now, a lot of fear that I didn't really have necessarily the same way as I do now. And I have a lot of nightmares as well. It's just been a tough grieving period.
Can you, you seem pretty emotional right now, and I don't want to go too deep if you're not ready to do it. Are you okay with,
No, I'm
all
good.
of this?
It's okay. I'm ready.
We heard a lot of different perspectives about what happened at the farm last year, live, as it was happening in many cases. But your perspective is a unique one because, well, you are family, Katie and Karen, all of that, your cousin and your aunt. And, I spent significant time with your mom and your stepdad as well. I mean, I think they're great people. And that place that you guys have there, really cool little getaway from all of the activity, right? You're behind that big, huge tree line right next to the creek that flows through the property.
Private.
But your property was taken over by the RCMP and the CFIA, and you didn't even know about this, did you?
We had no idea. Yeah, we had never spoken to the CFIA ever until well after they had already seized everything.
So were you there when this happened, or did you just kind of come in a couple of days later to find out in that moment? Like, can you please go ahead and give us everything that happened to you and Margaret and Trevor right from the beginning of your experience?
Yeah. So I had actually just left a few days before they seized everything. We weren't sure. We knew they were going to come at some point, but we weren't sure exactly when. So I had just left days before, and then we thought that they were coming when I was driving, and I almost turned around. But then we thought there was a little bit more time. So when they seized everything, we just watched it on live stream. We were watching 5 different people's live streams at all times. We were in a family group chat with everybody, updating by the minute on what was going on, where at all times we were really, really tuned in because it affected our family. And we had been sort of waiting to see what would happen to them. We had no idea that anything was really going to happen to us beyond, like needing to be there to support our family.
I want to throw this map up that you sent me earlier today, and thank you for doing that, by the way, because it would have completely slipped my mind. But this is an overview of the property here. So can you take us through this? I mean, this is the highway here.
Yeah, that's right. And then the junction's just to the right.
Yeah, so you guys follow my cursor here, okay? So this is the highway. We're coming down through the mountains. And right here is the turnoff onto Langill Road, right here.
Yeah.
That's where the mailboxes are and everything. Then we come through here, and we're coming along this road. Where is the neighbor, that one neighbor that was
You're
so
right. You're pretty much there. You're pretty much.
So this is her here in the fire hall. That old fire hall is around here as well?
Yeah, the fire hall is kind of closer to the junction up on that corner. But yeah, that property down there is that neighbor.
Okay, and then we're moving up here.
And so directly above your cursor is where the ostriches were.
Right, in here.
Yeah.
And here's the house, and then down here is where we had the big party last year, the big concert. Yeah. Okay, so this is the property here. If you guys can follow my cursor right here, this is where you and your mom and dad have your property right there. Am I correct?
Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. Well, it goes from that road, like basically that little corner that you were on there on Langill Road, right where it splits from Ostrich to us. From there directly up to the highway is ours.
All the way up to here.
Across onto the right side.
Okay.
And it goes just to not all the way to that corner, but almost all the way to the corner. It's 28 acres.
I didn't realize you guys had so much space up there. That's cool.
Yeah.
RCMP take all of it?
They took all of it. Yeah. And actually this is the Apple Maps satellite map, which they updated while they were occupying it, which is kind of crazy timing.
So are you trying to say if we zoom in on this, we're going to see the RCMP in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a little bit blurry, but they're
Well, that's the
okay. So
supporters on that lower part there, and that'll be the ostrich pens above.
this was where they did the kill box here, yeah?
If you keep going, you're going to see the kill box, actually, the kill pen. If you keep going straight up and keep going a little further, and then you start to see that's where their motorhome was, and to the left a bit is the kill pen.
Right over here.
Yeah.
Wow, you know what? This is terrible to see this.
It's actually sick. Yeah, it really freaked me out when I first started looking at it, because you can see how their motorhome is set up, their vehicles. They had a little tent right that had access to the ostriches. They could just divert them out if they wanted to directly into their little tent. They were set up really conveniently to have full-time access to those ostriches.
And so what was the premise of the RCMP expropriating your property? Because, you know, I mean, first of all, there's a lawsuit that you guys have launched against RCMP and CFIA. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And that's for illegal takeover of your property.
Oh, it's for all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Illegal takeover. The warrant didn't even have my parents' names on it, which was kind of the craziest part. It was written and said Universal Ostrich Farm secondary quarantine property, and it was in Karen and Dave's name. It had nothing to do with my parents. The offenses listed were not anything that would have been any of our responsibilities either. And also, we were not even in the province at the time of those offenses. So this warrant just made no sense to us at all. And in my opinion, I just feel like they didn't check who owned this property. They just assumed it was owned by Karen and Dave.
So why do you think they took it aside? Like, do you think they made a mistake? I mean, seriously, anybody can do a quick property check. Anybody, you and I can do it on Google. We can just go and see, all right, who owns this property here? How many properties are there on this particular piece of land? Right? I mean, you would think they would have done that for an operation this big with so many officers and so many cameras. So there must have been a reason that they took your place, especially. And I think I know what it might be, but if you go ahead and say it, I'll probably have to agree with you.
Yeah, it was for operational logistics. They didn't want to have to drive past the protesters. So the protesters were going to be on that road, Langell Road. They were set up sort of in front of and blocking access to the ostriches. And they knew that that was going to be a bit of a problem for them. So they seized our place as well, so that they could cut in from the highway and they could truck in all their hay bales, all of their material, their equipment, and then they could truck it back out and they could just divert all the way around the protesters. They didn't have to really deal with them. They ended up with a better sort of like stronghold of the property, and they had some privacy initially until we got there. They had some privacy over there, and it was a good operational sort of landmark. And also, if we had been there, I think they knew there was a residence there, so they didn't want anybody really to have access to the next door neighbor property. And they seized the one on the left of the ostriches as well. So I think
they actually, I mean, we talked about this on the phone, but I want you to be able to tell everybody who's watching right now. Again, guys, don't forget to like and share this. Get this out to as many people as you possibly can. It's important for people to hear this stuff. And if you don't share it, it goes quiet, because they are suppressing certain members of social media, myself included, right? Lately, it's been like, whoa, unless you guys start sharing. So please get it out there. Your property and the residents on the property had a pretty good viewpoint of the kill pen, right? I mean, you guys were closer to it than anybody else in the area.
Yeah, we could see it from our yard.
Did you know that they were setting that up there? I mean, like, first of all, let's go back to you being allowed onto your own property and then off your own property again. How many times did you have to go through that hoop with different RCMP officers? I mean, like, it seems like from the video I've seen, every single time you wanted to leave,
Oh yeah. Well,
you had to
anytime
get
that
their
we wanted,
permission.
anytime that we wanted to leave or enter, we were not allowed to touch the carabiner that had the police tape across the gate. So we would have to ask for them to come, and they could unclip that carabiner for us so that we could get through. So yeah, we had to ask them every time. Initially, we had to give them ID. We had to stand there and wait for 40 minutes while they figured out if they were going to let us in. And then they escorted us to the residence. Then I got banned from the property on the 10th. We got there on October 7th. I got banned on the 10th after.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You got banned from your own house.
Not just banned, threatened with arrest. Yeah, they threatened to arrest me if I didn't get CFIA permission to access the property again, which they had already given me permission. We stood there, we gave ID, they approved us, they escorted us in. The following day, the CFIA finally contacted my mom for the first time ever and approved us all. And then, a police liaison sent me a text that said, and remember, if you don't get CFIA permission each time you enter your mom's property, your arrest will be authorized.
So how now I understand the communications between CFIA and anybody on the outside of it was sketchy at best. I mean, I heard from Karen and from Katie that, we were supposed to be in touch with CFIA through email. It was email only. And they never, ever, ever got back when you sent them a message, right?
Oh, they would get back sometimes, but they would dodge your questions or whatever. I think we had 3 total emails ever sent back to us. One was because when I got banned, I had to then request permission to enter the property again. I had to send an email in front of the RCMP, and they took my phone to check that I had sent it. And then they sent me back an approval the following morning that said, okay, now approved for Margaret Greba, Trevor Klug, and Aly Turnbull, but now no dogs. You can't have any dogs on your property. They had to flex their muscles again somehow. So
it was just arbitrary, like whatever they decided.
Yeah.
At any given time. Like, so one permission, no dogs. This time you can go ahead and have dogs, but next time, no. And you'd never know. They were trying to keep you on your toes, I suppose. They were trying to keep you uncomfortable and confused.
And make sure that we didn't overstep whatever their imaginary boundaries. Like, they had never told us what we could or couldn't do until they would just decide suddenly and change the rules.
We talked about this last week on the phone. And was the RCMP on your property? Because what I want you guys to understand, you guys watching this, is that this property, there's a tree line between the road where the ostriches were and the property where the residence is. And it's very quiet, very relaxing, very calming place. You can feel like you're not near anything, really, when you're there, sitting on that deck. Were they on your property using your, were they eating meals? Were they cooking on your stove? Do you know if they were in your home?
We don't know. I feel like initially they may have been. You're right. It's a really nice spot. It's very, very private. And at the time, they didn't have all of their access yet. So I think probably the first couple of days, it would have been a nice spot to get away from the anger and the protesters, to go have that little secluded spot. But once we were there, they couldn't have that. And they had seized the property on the other side. Initially, when they set up their motorhome, it wasn't where we just saw on that map. It was on the other side, near the other property that they had seized. And there was no residents there. So it was a pretty good secluded spot over there as well. But they were camped out on top of the hottest part of the quarantine zone. They were literally over top of the burials. So when people started commenting on the fact that they were in their street clothes, they were drinking water bottles, they were acting like there was no biosecurity issue, literally camping on top of the burials, they moved. So I think it wasn't what they wanted to be where they were in the end, within sight lines of us, but it's sort of they had to, because otherwise it would have been a worse spectacle than it already was.
Were you restricted from things you could and couldn't do on the property?
Oh yeah, and those rules changed as well.
Now I want you guys to understand, like, imagine you're sitting in your backyard and the RCMP is there saying, no, you can't go to your garden. I'm sorry, you can't. You can't go to your well. You cannot go to your shed. And then the rules change every day. So the next day you can get your shovel out of the shed, but you can't use it. I mean, explain that, please.
Yeah, so we have a patch of garlic. We grow garlic. We were not allowed. Initially, we're told we would be allowed to go harvest the garlic. Then we were told we were not allowed to, because we were seen. I had a camera out at all times, so I would be just filming, and they hated that. So then we were no longer allowed to go to the garlic, which had another good sight line on everything. We had another garden.
Were they watching you, Aly? I mean, if you're in your yard, right? And they say you can't go to your garlic. You say, it's my house. I'm going to the garlic. So
that's why.
You've got an RCMP officer watching you get up from the deck to go to the garlic garden.
Oh, they were parked at the garlic. The garlic was it was tactical garlic. They were parked. They had a tactical vehicle in front of the garlic. They were full-time on the garlic, which meant that they had sight lines from the ground to us at all times. And they would also send a drone or 2 or 3 drones and follow us at all times too, which it's not a big area. And we're literally the only people in that area. And so they were just watching us with drones, following us constantly, watching us from the ground. I could hear them cough from where I was.
Day or night too, they were following you with these drones.
Day and night, they were following us with drones. They were there constantly. They had a generator running for their tactical truck just on the other side of the tree line from us. If you go to that map again, you can literally see them parked there. Just through the trees from us, it's actually really short.
Dacey's watching the tactical garlic.
Yeah.
He puts down on his YouTube. I want to play this video. So before we begin, can you please set the stage for us? This is the nighttime one, where you're talking to that obstinate RCMP officer. I know you're there. I know Dacey's there.
Yeah.
It's your mom and stepdad, right? Also?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is in November at this point. So we had already had weeks and weeks of RCMP control of the property. And every once in a while, basically there was a new shift every 6 days. And each time the new shift would never be kind of warned about us at all. So we would then have to de-escalate the tension between RCMP and us each time. Just for going in the property, they would always say, well, it's very weird that you would even be allowed in here because it's a search warrant. And we would say, yes, it's weird for us too. We don't understand. So
a search warrant that lasted how many days? 48? 52.
Yeah.
Like, it's a search warrant for 52 days. First of all, that's not a search warrant.
And they didn't search. They weren't searching.
That's a different kind of warrant. That's a seizure, not search, but seizure. Yeah. So I'm going to put this video on. You guys got to find this really alarming. Like, what is the medical condition that Margaret has?
She has epilepsy, so she has seizures, and it can be triggered by light.
Okay, so you guys watch this, and Aly, if you need to stop and tell us exactly what's going on as we continue through this video, please just let me know. Just go ahead and say, oh, can you stop, so you can explain it, okay?
Yeah.
All right, here we go, you guys.
We're just trying to let your gate out for safety.
Let's go into our gate.
Okay. Yeah.
Had you seen this officer before?
He arrived the night before, and we had a little bit of tension with him already. Just because, I don't know, this guy, if you look at videos of him during the call night, he was smiling in that lineup of RCMP. I think he was one of the more rude and aggressive police that they sent to us. And it was, of course, right before the call. It just seemed like they were sending more and more aggressive shifts towards us as things were getting closer.
It's interesting that you say that, because it was a lot the same at Freedom Convoy, from what I hear from people who were there, right? Like, what kind of officers would you send to something like that? You would want to send the most aggressive people because you know that they're going to get the job done, even if it's gleefully.
Yeah, and
I
we
don't-
had a lot of good rapport with a lot of the RCMP over the weeks. We had, gotten to know quite a few of them because we had to talk to them 10 times a day. So we had good relationship with a few of them. And then as soon as we would build that rapport, they would not be approved to return for another shift.
Yeah. I also know that I think it was maybe the final day or the final night where there was video of the officers who were forming that line in front of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
That some of them, maybe some of the younger ones, some of the female RCMP officers as well, were very, very emotional. Like they almost looked like they were coming to tears knowing what was coming next. Did you see that yourself?
I didn't. There was one officer that I did have a bit of more of a rapport with that they sent back, I think probably to calm us. And he was a little bit emotional. But if they were emotional, I mean, I didn't see it. They were still standing in a human shield for the CFIA. So
Okay.
Most of them were super rude or just totally trying to ignore us.
Interesting how they would deploy that. I guess maybe the ones further back would have been the ones that were more aggressive, which is where your residence is, like as we go further back towards the kill pen.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue on with this.
For security, so yeah. Our Milwaukee light is brighter than that, right?
What?
The Milwaukee light that's usually there is brighter than what's on my police car.
Your alley light.
No, we're not moving the light.
We're not going to move the light.
No.
In further response to paragraph 25C, when the plaintiff Klug approached RCMP.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say again?
Trevor Klug, yeah, that's my stepdad's last name.
That's your step. Okay. Approached RCMP members and informed them the plaintiff, your mom, had a medical condition triggered by flashing or bright light. RCMP members worked with the plaintiffs to turn off the lights when she was passing through the area. So
Yeah,
that's the response from CFIA. That's what they say.
Yeah, yeah. And this, does it look like it?
Clearly not. You know what? I want to go through this as well once the video is over here. This is 6 minutes long, you guys. We're going to be stopping and starting. But, Aly was also telling me on the phone last week that there was so many lies in the response from CFIA when it comes to the lawsuit and the legal papers and the back and forth and all of that. I want to get to some of that as well. But first, let's get through this here.
You don't sleep here. You're literally traveling by.
He doesn't sleep here. Dude, he lives
You
there
sleep over there. Is the light shining into your window?
every time he comes in.
Every time we come in and out.
Yeah, is that on the left or on the right there?
What's
That's from the
that?
residence.
Say again?
That on the right there, that's from the residence. Like he said, it doesn't shine into your light, does it? Or into your window, does it? That's when we are leaving the residence on the right there. That little.
Is that a split screen or is that actually going on
Yes.
right behind him?
No, it's
That's
a split screen. That's just showing what it looks like
Okay.
for us. Just
Seeing the lights on
navigating.
your truck? They're way better than my light.
She doesn't walk directly into
This
this.
is
We're
going
directly
kidding me?
into the eyes.
What's
Dude.
that?
This is getting us right in the eyes.
I
Okay.
can hear Daisy. Dude, like,
He was really
try to
upset.
be a human being, right? Like, I can understand how upset.
Okay, all the way down the
Okay.
We have to get into
So what would
this
you like me to do?
to light this light off.
How about be
No,
a human?
That's not going to happen.
Then it should be pointed not directly where we
No.
drive and walk.
Okay, I'm telling you, the light cannot come down. Okay, I understand your guys' concerns.
What if my wife has a seizure?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot do anything about the light. Okay. Well, I don't know if there's ways that she can either close her eyes or wear sunglasses. I'm
Are
trying.
Close her eyes or wear sunglasses.
Just close them up. Do you need to drive?
Like-
well, she can't now because she has to close her eyes or wear sunglasses at night.
Unbelievable. Does this guy actually, like, you're standing right there. I see you standing right there. Like you must be going like, dude, you're not even really human, are you?
I was really stunned. I mean, I couldn't believe that he was saying the things he was. They were so rude and disrespectful, and he's literally on our property. I kind of knew that we were going to have this interaction because they had set up the light so that it beamed down towards Karen's house. So even just walking from the driveway, or driving from the driveway to our place. Like, it was dangerous for even pedestrians. So we knew we were going to talk to him about it, but this was really shocking, his response.
Is this the only guy that you had a conversation with about the lights?
Oh, the previous RCMP never shined the lights that way down the road directly. They would angle them if they used them. Sometimes they wouldn't even have the lights on. The lights kind of popped up as I called it my punishment light, and they call it an alley light, which is kind of rude, but it's a different alley. And then they would shine it angled so that it would just illuminate me if I left the property in the dark at all. They wanted to see me because I guess I startled them a couple times just walking accidentally. So this was a new direction, though, to point it directly down the driveway and point it where people would be driving. It was dangerous at that point. It was a shift. It was a change.
Wow. All right, let's continue.
I'm trying to give you guys ways.
You know what the hard thing about this is that we don't have a choice here.
I understand that.
Yeah, this is just where we
And
live.
we're trying to keep the peace, and at the same time, we're also doing security measures because certain individuals are causing a lot of issues for us, and so we're trying to keep the peace during this period of time.
Who's causing issues?
During this period of time, and so we need the light so we can see who's individual.
Okay, so I see your eyes kind of going back and forth here. Like, obviously, this guy's lying. You're asking him who's causing the problems, and I do know that there were maybe a couple of problems that happened during the entire occupation, and I believe we're correct to call it an occupation.
Oh, yeah.
I know that Jim Kerr jumped a fence, and I know that one time, and he got arrested for that. He was taken off the property. And
Well,
not
he
allowed
didn't jump a fence. He kind of, I think he went under, or he didn't fully jump a fence, and he was still kind of within a barrier, but yeah, he crossed a line.
He crossed the line. He got arrested. He was not allowed back on the property, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So no more Jim Kerr. So you don't have to worry about that. This guy.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah.
And the other one, the only one that I could think of would have been the incident with the neighbor on the other side.
Yeah, which happened 17 minutes after the police arrived. Like,
Yeah. So that was already long in the past.
yes, and I mean, I don't know.
I know Gaudry had his megaphone out and he was doing a lot of yelling back and forth with the cops every now and again. But
yeah, and the cops would tell us that they didn't get into that job to have everybody love them. You know, they know how to deal with people who are emotional, and they deal with people who are, you know, having the worst day of their lives all the time. So if they can't handle people being emotional, that's what they're supposed to do. That's their jobs.
Yeah, you have to wonder too, like this guy here who's saying, well, you know, we can't do anything about the light, even though the other RCMP officers clearly could.
Yeah.
This guy here, you got to wonder, like, does he understand? Does he have empathy? Meaning that if he owns property wherever he comes from, how would he like it if there were a bunch of armed strangers? And we talk about a bunch. Like, you'd mentioned the number 36 to me last week. I've heard other estimates that were considerably higher than that, especially as we got towards the end of it.
I mean, yeah, on the call night, I'd say there was probably 100.
Yeah, like imagine what that must be like to have all of these, essentially an army, a regiment, keeping an eye on you because you're the bad one. Your property is occupied by us because you've got infected ostriches here. Like, give me a break, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was like the biggest problem for them just because sometimes I would walk around and I wouldn't even walk around the property. I would walk, you know, I'd exit the gate, but if I'm on foot, I didn't have to wait for them to open the tape. I could just duck under and I would startle them, I guess, because I come out.
Them?
Yeah.
Here's what I want to ask you, Aly. How tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
You're 5'6". You're a woman who's 5'6".
Yeah.
And you know, these guys are trained in tactical maneuvers. They're armed. I don't think that you're a problem for them.
No, I'm pretty friendly. I'm always polite. I would introduce myself to them first at the beginning of their shifts on the shift change, just so that we wouldn't have issues. I would tell them sometimes I like to walk around. Like, I know I'm not allowed to walk around within our property, so I sometimes walk out of the property.
So,
and
like, what would a startling incident look like? Would they go, "Oh my God, it's a 5'6" woman"?
yeah, well, because of the way they're parked at our property, the way that they were angled, sometimes I would come out, I think, through their peripheral view. So there was this cat that would run around the property sometimes, and he's this white cat, and he would sometimes just come up in the peripheral view. And I joked that I was probably kind of like that because it would just startle you in the dark. And I'm pretty sure that that's what it was like for them. I would even have a flashlight pointed at myself so that I was fully illuminated. I wasn't going to startle them. I'm scared. They all have guns.
But
And
you know what? They're out in the country.
yeah.
What do they think? You're going to hear owls hooting every now and again? You're
Yeah,
going
well,
to
we
hear
heard
squirrels
coyotes
chirping?
sometimes, and they were very startled by that. They did not understand the coyote howling at all.
Wow.
Really freaked out that night.
All right, let's get through this here, as painful as it is.
Are coming up to our
Who is
Is he
causing
talking about
issues?
me?
Okay,
Who's
so the
causing it?
light's not
talking
coming
about
on.
me?
That's the end of the
This
discussion. All
light
of you guys
was not
feel free to
on.
pull into your property. Okay.
Who's causing issues?
Do you want to go in, or do you want me to close the gate?
Or to what? Go in or close the gate?
Okay, well, you don't have to go in. That's your choice. Okay, then you can back up and you can leave. Okay. Well,
What a dick.
again, I'm sorry. This is on the circumstances we're at this point. So you can
Like,
You
head
can
into your
go
property
in
and
and you
head to
can
bed
leave?
for the night. It's up to you.
What?
do you know? Like,
Are you the same guy that...
I want to stop this. In further response to paragraph 23 and in response to paragraph 30C of the claim, at all material times, CFIA and RCMP officers interacted respectfully with the plaintiffs.
told her she could sleep in her car outside?
No.
Are you serious?
Like-
You're going to sit on our property. You're going to mess up our property. And then you're going to tell us, go in there and sleep and tuck with your lights.
close
This
your
is our
eyes.
No, the light's not
or
coming on.
put sunglasses on at
But
night.
get in
if
and
You guys
leave?
can argue with me all you
light is
want.
shining
The
in.
bottom
No
line,
one's
the light's
arguing
staying
with
on.
Well, does it have to be right there? As
At
you're
eye
going-
level.
Where would you like us to park our police cars?
It's
Well, there's
With the
nothing
light
in this
on.
pen, the CFI.
You got an RCMP car exiting the driveway.
Like that's just their light for us when we're right behind him. As we walk out, there's be another one pointed up at us. Like there's just
Where would you like us? He's asking to park our police cars. Dude, you've got how many acres?
yeah, like anywhere else, or even still there, but just point your light differently. Like what?
Yeah. I
Let's move the pen. Why don't we move it over?
This
What do you
light
mean?
is
Move it
not
over to
like
where?
this all
I have
the
to be able to
Look
see.
out.
I have to be able to see onto the road.
This is
in the
brand
month I've
new.
been here,
This
there've
is
been
not
numerous nights that
how
the
it
light
is.
wasn't on.
I have to see onto the road.
You are new here. We are not.
I have to see
Last
onto the road.
police officers
No, you
did
don't.
not
Okay,
do this.
guys, this conversation's obviously going
Or
nowhere.
what? And they can leave or they cannot? Or what will you do?
What do you mean? They're
The
free to
last
come and go as they
police
please.
officers that
You
were
just
here
said they-
in the
they
last
can
shift
come-
Did not do this.
Well, we're doing
Have
it.
you not
so-
been briefed coming in here? Were you not briefed?
Okay.
You could be a human being.
Nothing I can do
You
about
could be a
that.
human being.
Please put your seatbelt on. You're free to go.
Please put
Thank you
your...
very much.
Oh boy.
Dude, are you...
Okay, you guys.
I'm just wondering here, like, this is not a reasonable person.
No, and it gets worse. He's about to say something even more weirder.
All right. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, let's.
Going into my property?
Well, you also don't have a front plane with the front of your truck, so
Pardon? A what?
Okay, this is where he's saying you don't have a front plate on the front of your truck, but you guys are Alberta.
An Alberta vehicle, you don't have to have a front plate on your truck. Yeah.
Right.
front
It's
plate.
an Alberta
Alberta.
truck.
Oh, are you? Okay.
This-
Fair enough. I didn't see the rear plate.
Okay.
That's
there we
not what
go.
you're saying,
What's
man.
that?
You piece of shit.
I'm not threatening anything. No?
Yeah, you certainly
You're
are.
dressing
Okay.
down anything you perceive as a crime
No,
right now.
no.
To protect the CFIA.
No, we're here to keep the peace while it goes through, whether it goes through the court process.
Them or us?
We're protecting both sides of the parties.
No, you're not.
Keep the peace, right? All you're
We
doing is
are-
disturbing
We are
the peace.
impartial. We are on nobody's
No, you're
side.
not impartial.
Okay?
What?
And again, I apologize. I understand the lights.
Your condescending bullshit
It's not
doesn't
an
mean anything.
inconvenience,
For
it's a
security
health risk.
purposes, we have
It's
to
a
have a
health
light
risk.
that we
It's
have
not
to
an
shine the light.
inconvenience.
Okay, you might not agree with it, but unfortunately, that's the circumstances that we're at.
It's a health risk.
Okay,
It's
and
not
I
an
understand that you guys
inconvenience.
don't like it, and I apologize.
Now you're
again.
being apologetic and diminutive when you were just talking shit for...
At the end of the day, I understand this is an inconvenience to you guys. It's an inconvenience for everybody. I understand.
It's a health hazard.
I do. I understand that. And unfortunately, there's nothing. There's no perfect scenario here.
This is not.
It's not okay. No.
Universal Ostrich Farm property. It's not Universal Ostrich Farm property. This warrant is not in their names, and you're terrorizing them.
And again, I apologize for your life. It's like I said, it's not a perfect scenario, but I do need security. Unfortunately, when it comes to these scenarios, the majority of people here are peaceful protesters, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. People can come out here and they can voice their opinions in a safe and productive manner, but unfortunately, there's some individuals here who have other motives in mind.
Who has other motives in mind? Jeez.
There's people here who take a little molehill and try and build it into a mountain.
A little molehill and build it into a mountain. Excuse me, but you've just seized private property. That is not a little molehill.
It's kind of a mountain to me.
Huge.
Yeah.
So do you know this guy's name?
I don't know his name actually. That one. I mean, there's all sorts. We have his badge number. But,
Is this lawsuit, Aly, is it name certain members of the RCMP, or is it against the organization as a whole, and the same with the CFIA?
It doesn't name certain members. It's just the organizations as a whole, and then I've put in a complaint against one RCMP, and kind of they're just going to continue on until we're.
Was it against that RCMP or another one?
A different one, yeah.
Can you explain what happened in that incident?
Oh, well, there's an RCMP I would say would have been my family's liaison RCMP. He's from Nicusp. And
wait a minute, hold on. He's a liaison officer? These
I don't
guys
think
are
he's a
supposed to
liaison. He's actually a detachment commander.
I know who you mean. Okay.
Yeah, he was the one that interacted the most with my family. And so I had met with him on September 9th, which is well before they had seized anything. And I had given him a lot of documents on people being ominous and threatening and violent and harassing.
You mean RCMP officers and not people who were at the farm, right?
Oh, no, people in the town or online.
Right.
And so I had given him a ton of proof of that. And he said that he would file a report for me, that he would request preservation of it all, and he would interview some people. And then he just completely ghosted me and never spoke to me again. He looked at my LinkedIn right before he seized my parents' property, but he still never responded to anything ever again about our fears and concerns about that.
You know, it's interesting because I know that those fears and concerns were going on for as long as the situation was being publicized. So we can go back a year and a half, right?
Since June 4th, really.
Well, I mean, if we go back to even February of last year, or January, when this first became a thing, when the CFIA said at the beginning, all right, sorry, man, but you know what? We're going to have to cull your birds. Even after all the back and forth. And then, Katie started becoming more and more public about it. And the thing became blown up all over the world, not just Canada. But, at some point in the very early goings, there were some local social media groups that formed from the Edgewood area who were talking about, coming in there in the middle of the night and just shooting them themselves.
Oh, yeah. They made Edgewood Sniper Club stickers and T-shirts, and birds did get shot. A bird got shot in March and in May as well. They were shot dead in the night. So it's pretty scary.
What was the locals' reaction? Now, I was there for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I think, altogether. And I did see some of it, but I don't think I was there long enough to really absorb all of it. I do know I had one episode where I was at the town store there, and there was some drunken asshole with a boat who was talking about catching. He said he caught the avian flu from the ostriches, right? And I went, did you go to the ostrich farm? Because I'm standing right there, and he's yelling all this stuff to people who were on the street. And I said, did you go to the ostrich farm? And he goes, no, man, like it's in the air. I said, shut
Oh
up.
yeah, they say all sorts of stuff. I think there was the group Facebook group that originally started June 4th, and it was called Edgewood Uncensored, and they I mean, if anybody ever spoke positively towards the ostrich farm, they would get removed, or people would just dogpile on them and harass them, and I mean, they would say, if somebody spoke up and said, do you not have anything nice to say, they would then throw the worst thing that they know about that person, any gossip at all, they would throw it out publicly to shame them so that they would never do it again. And then it got to the point where some locals would approach us and say, just want you to know that we support you, but we can't publicly, because the people that are involved in those groups, they will just pile on them so hard, and it will just become this public assault, basically.
This is the problem with people, is they just won't stand up for what they know to be right. You know, this is what we've been going through for years. Yeah, but still, I mean, like you could stand up and say, exactly what did they do to you? And, you know, I remember sitting down with your aunt one day. We were having coffee. We're in the kitchen of the house there. And she said she knew some of the people who were in this group. She was upset. Yeah. And she was saying, this guy here, I remember giving him a job when he was 17 years old and helping him through a very, very difficult situation. She didn't go into it. Well, she did, but I'm not going to go into it here. Anyway, I mean, you know, your aunt is pretty famous around that area for helping people, you know, feeding
she's
people.
The nicest person I know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And for the town and the whole region to turn on her like this, to me, was reprehensible. But it was planned that way. They wanted that. I think it was organized, honestly. The way it popped up, it wasn't really natural. It's not how people naturally gather, which, you know, we have a grassroots cause. We're familiar with how people sort of gather and support a cause. This was not natural. Are you talking about the social media groups, or are you talking about just the way the town
the social media groups? It was I mean, they first started this group on June 4th, and they were immediately sort of hyping up their authority, which they said was a forensic investigator, and he had all this information and dirt on the farm. And then he just spread tons of disinformation. There was YouTube videos and podcasts that he went on where he just slandered and said so much disinformation about my family. And these locals watched it, and they have said on the same podcast, they've said, oh, that first YouTube video was really informative for me. And he grabbed onto them. They took all the people who are the town negative gossip types, and they accumulated all of their gossip, and then they spread it out, and it was really organized, and it was just relentless. Every day, many times a day, they would just be spreading disinformation to the locals. And I think they just radicalized the town. They wanted to eliminate public support, and they used a playbook for it. It's literally like a propaganda. It's called AstroTurf campaign, I've learned.
Absolutely, totally is. It's, you know, and your family was under threat from so many different entities all at one time.
Yeah, and then they riled up the people in the town who are that way, that would jump to conclusions and could potentially become a violent problem for us. So it became really, really scary very fast.
So back at the beginning of the show tonight, you were saying you were going through some hard times. You're not exactly back to where you would like to be emotionally and whatnot. And
no. Well, especially since it's still happening, these groups.
This
threat still happened. Like a man was charged with criminal harassment just like a week and a half ago.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know this story. What? Tell us.
There's a man that frequents the groups. He's constantly in these groups, and they kind of encourage and rile him up. And he's
this is the loop-de-loop guy?
I'd say he's not well, and he's got some addiction issues, I think. And so he recently posted a lot of threats where he said we should get some save-on dumpsters to put the grifters' bodies in. And he was just saying it probably about 10 times. He would say it in different groups, and they are laughing at his posts. They're kind of encouraging and hyping it up.
And so he got picked up and arrested. Good. Is he still in custody? Is he charged?
No, he's released on conditions, but now he's breached his conditions.
So he'll be back. Emotionally speaking, I'm not sure how often you talk to Karen, Katie, but if you do, and I know you're a close family.
Every day.
Okay, every day. How is everybody doing?
I think everybody that was there, like everybody that was there for that is not the same. And I'm probably, I don't know if they will be ever again, but I know for Karen and Katie and me and my mom, especially, it actually seems to get harder the longer it goes without any accountability and anybody taking responsibility for what was done. The longer that goes, the harder it gets, because it's just really shocking to have this happen and to know that so many things were done so wrong and just nothing happens, I guess, to them. Like, they don't have to even apologize. They don't even have to say that they did anything wrong. And in fact, they can continue on egging on these groups and just destroy public support as best they can continuously.
Tell us the response, because you were suing CFIA, RCMP, and they've had to respond to you through this lawsuit. Yeah. Everything they said is a lie, right?
Oh, well, lots of it is a lie, and a lot of it is just it just doesn't even make sense. Like, they said that there's no proof that we have had any anxiety or distress over what happened, and no proof that this has actually affected us in any way. And I think that's typical. My lawyer warned me that they obviously weren't going to send a defense that said, okay, we did it. Like, that's not how that works either. But I mean, it was offensive the way that they denied everything.
So what's next in the process? I mean, how long is this going to go on, do you think?
I don't know. I'm hoping that we can move through this process.
When did you first file this? Was it like recently?
We filed February 10th, and then they responded May 1st, and then we've just filed a reply at the end of May to their response, where we just say, like, that's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true. And now we go into disclosure. So you're going to get all of the stuff. Well, hopefully you'll get all of the stuff. I mean, you're going up against a very powerful, well-funded government agency, right? And it's probably daunting. Go ahead. The difference is, like, for them, this is their job. For us, this is our life. So I have energy for this at this point. Like, we want justice.
What was your life like before all of this?
Oh, not this.
Do you even remember?
I don't. I'm having a hard time with that. I don't know who I am now that this happened to me. My life before was nothing to do with this. I didn't follow political anything. I was just trying to get through life and through my day. I'm a mother, and I am. I just tried to get through life normally, and I didn't really bother myself with the rest of it. I didn't follow anything. I was naive. I didn't know the government could do this kind of harm to people, and I didn't know that the media could even lie. I thought there were rules against that, so I was just living ignorant bliss. And then I watched the media start to lie about my life right in front of me. And it was truly the most shocking part of it, was when they started to actually deceive the public. I was really changed by that. That
CBC special they did.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of them. One of the shocking things.
That's one of the ones that got a lot of play in these last couple of months, because it was so absolutely garbage. Yeah.
That was just crazy. The fact that they didn't even ask the CFIA a thing about the violence or whether they had tested any of them, or they didn't ask any of the actual questions that Canadians wanted asked. That was just a hit job. It was ridiculous.
Have you been back recently to the farm?
Yeah.
What was it like going back there for the first time? Like first time you went back. I know that you're in Alberta and it's a bit of a drive to get back to the farm. And
I've been back.
After I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I wanted to I want to get your first experience back at the farm after everything.
Yeah. I think that the most recent time that I was back was maybe the toughest one. The first time that I got back, it was snowing. There was a massive storm, so everything was covered in snow. You couldn't really go around and see everything. It was when the Fifth Estate came actually to interview. There was a few different things going on at that time, so it was weird to have it be so quiet. And not hear the booming is for me the hardest part, because like we are used to having ostriches through our yard. We can see them and we hear them all the time. And now it's unbelievably quiet. But the more recent time that I went, it's springtime. It's the time where it's normal to walk around. And I just kept finding myself as I was walking, I would find myself at that kill pen. I didn't plan on ever going there, but I kept finding myself there, and that I went in, and it was really, really tough. We went in with metal detectors, and we found a lot of bullet casings. It's just truly shocking and disturbing that they did that, and in that tiny little corral, they shot them all running for their lives, and they did it from these hay bales that then they cut the twine and they tipped the hay bales over so that it would be really hard for people to clean up. And now it's a fire hazard, and they have found 3 live rounds in those hay bales. So it's a real fire hazard. It's really hard to clean up, and we found the smallest rounds I've ever seen that were used.
There were some renderings left behind too, weren't there, after the initial culling, whatever. I mean, this was supposed to be a hazardous area, and they left blood. They left a lot of possible infectious things behind.
Well, and they picked up a lot of that hay, and they took it over to my parents' property, and they spread it into their roadways so that they could get traction in their vehicles because they were all stuck. So they contaminated my parents' property as well with all of that. It's a true contamination because they spread bloody hay on the property. It's just gross. There was no biosecurity followed. There really wasn't. It's so offensive that they did this, and they would say that it's for biosecurity when they disrespected biosecurity at every turn. And then they would just put out statements to all of Canada and say, no, we're doing perfect biosecurity. Don't worry. We're doing great biosecurity, everyone. It's going great. Like, it was a lie. They lied to Canadians.
It's no surprise that they lied. I mean, they're a government agency. We know what these people do. Yeah. It's funny the way you were describing yourself. The Aly before and now the Aly after.
I've learned a lot.
I'll bet. It's a whole different world, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And just having talked to so many people too, like supporters and people who've reached out, and the people who really get it are the people who have been harmed by the government. And that's really a tough thing to take in when you didn't realize it. Is how.
What about your friends before and after now? Have you because this is not a question I've had the opportunity to ask anybody really for quite some time.
Yeah.
It usually was asked a lot during Freedom Convoy, and even before that, when the shots first came out, or even when COVID came out. This show's been on for 6 years, and I've had the opportunity to ask people, what was your moment where you realized? How did your life change? And you are a more recent addition to our Freedom family now. Welcome. It's nice
Thank
to have you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry you had to be dragged in such a horrible way, but you're here and you've got a family.
Yeah.
I hope you understand that there's people all across this country who are supporting and caring about you guys, you and the entire family.
Thank you.
Have you lost friends? Have people kind of turned away from you since all of this?
I don't know if I'm not sure who turned away. Honestly, I'm different, and now I've had a really hard time talking to anyone. Really, I've become really isolated, and part of it is because I don't know how to talk to people. And now it feels like every conversation I'm going to have with anyone from my life before will be like a reunion, which feels like a lot of pressure because I don't know how to talk to people about what happened because it's so crazy. It's
They
so
can't.
shocking.
You can't. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now that you can't do that.
I know.
There's no way that you can. So let me please say to you that it's okay that you don't, and if you want to go back to the people from before, that's all right too. I mean, like, I think everybody does that. We go back to that, but it's different. It's different now. When you go, like, for example, I'll go out and see buddies of mine that I've known since high school and we'll play around at golf or something, whatever. We don't ever talk about this stuff because if we talk about this stuff, they're going to start calling names, and that's where the division comes in. But it is a different dynamic, and that's something that you can't expect when you see people from back in the day. In your case, it's not even that long ago, right? It's a completely different thing. They are people who are still sleeping, and you'll notice that. You'll definitely notice that by the way they act, the things they say. They think everything is perfectly fine. It's not.
Yeah, that's the tough one for me. It's just because I don't feel like everything is fine at all. And a lot of people are really supportive of our family and my friends, they are too. They would, send support. I think for me, it was really hard that people were living their normal life while we were fighting for our lives, while they were shooting 1,000 bullets. It just feels like such a disconnect now. And I've had a couple people just say that I'm really different now when I see them. And I think that's really giving me a lot of anxiety about talking to people, is because I think they'll be able to measure before and after Aly better than me.
So what? I mean, like, if they say you're different now, I mean, you've grown, your eyes have opened. You can see what's going on now. And that gives you everything you need to be able to fight back. Those other people, they're still sleepwalking through.
Yeah.
And, so I don't like saying this, but I also do. Again, here you are. You're awake now, right? And you see it. And as things go on, Aly, you're going to see more and more and more. I know but that's my experience. And so, with the people that we do have, and that number is growing as well, we're going to be able to continue fighting back, as opposed to getting steamrolled. And you could see that too with the ostrich farm.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, more and more people started to take notice of it and wanted to know, at the very least, wanted to know exactly what was going on. And they weren't satisfied with the left-wing corporate media story. So they started listening. So they started listening to people like me and others who were telling more of the truth. All sides.
It's clearly, I mean, the stuff that they put out on it, it's not, they had a hard job to convince Canadians to allow healthy animals be gunned down. Like, people aren't, it's not an easy sell. And so I think that,
what though, they didn't. That's the problem, because people have become so conditioned to believing whatever they say. Not everybody, like I say, like that number is getting smaller, ours is getting larger. I have another question for you, and that is, that night, because we've been kind of skirting around it a little bit, the night that it happened, were you on the property? Were you on your property? Were you able to see through the trees?
Yeah. Well, they beamed us with lights. So we saw them setting up their lights on top of the kill pen that morning to shine out at us. We were on the property when it happened, and
And it must have been loud too, right?
it was very loud. It was sudden, and I didn't realize what it was until the screaming. And I heard one of our close friends and supporters, she was screaming. She has gun trauma. We never thought it would be guns. We never thought they would be just start shooting them. That was really shocking. And so she was screaming, and then Katie came out, and I knew they were shooting at that point. I was just trying to beg her to go inside the house and to be with Karen. And when she realized that it was gunfire, it just all was so bad. And my stepdad was in our property, and we couldn't contact each other. Our phones kept going down. We had really bad service at the time, and
I think they probably put up blockers, right?
oh yeah, just at the best times that they could for us. So yeah, the gunfire was happening. It was really, really disturbing and fast. And then within the property, I had a drone illuminate me from the sky, which I didn't even know they could do that. And it turned on me and my stepdad, and I just started freaking out. Like, I thought that it could shoot me, and there was gunfire happening, and I already have PTSD about a gun violence incident from before. So I thought I was about to die. This drone illuminated me, and as I was screaming for it to stop, it just shone brighter. It turned up brighter. And my stepdad called the liaison on the phone and left him a voicemail, which they could hear him doing because they were right on the other side of the trees from us. And as soon as he hung up that voicemail, because that liaison had already said that they would get the drones to back off us, as soon as he got off the phone, it powered off. And it was the most shocking thing for me, to be illuminated from the sky. I was frozen. I couldn't figure out what to do. It's all on video. It was just like the most jarring thing at the most disturbing time. And it just felt like harassment, and like they were probably just laughing at us.
You grew up with these ostriches, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like Katie too, right? Like I remember having this conversation with Katie, and I said, you were a little kid when this ostrich was born. This ostrich, whichever ostrich it was, you grew up with this ostrich, this one particular, never mind all of the other ones, this one here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you get to know their behaviors pretty well. And then individually too, you can tell them apart. I always thought that was interesting. When I first arrived at the farm, and, I got to see them up as close as I could because they had that stupid yellow tape there in front of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the stupidest thing. But you get as close as you can, and you look at them and they look back at you, right? And you go, wow, man, like these are the coolest of creatures. You could just sit there with them for hours and just,
they're so magnetic.
They are. And you were right there. I mean, do ostriches scream? Did you hear them that night? Like when they were.
People have said that they were screaming, and I'm really sorry to say this. I think it might have been me, because I've seen the live stream that was done by this lady named Erica. She recorded from start to finish, and people were counting the bullets being fired, and she was out on the highway, like locked out, and she just recorded the whole night. And there was a time where I don't remember what led up to it for me screaming, but I couldn't stop screaming, and people thought that they were screaming. I'm thinking when it might have been me, and I'm just was the closest one to them, but I just lost my mind in there. I don't know. Everything was just happening, and I thought I was going to die, and we were fighting for their lives. I don't know why, but up until probably about halfway through the shooting, I really truly thought we could stop them still. Like, I thought that there was some way that we could get them to, we could pull off another miracle or something. I just fought as if we could save them.
I want people to understand as well, this was not the RCMP that killed the ostriches. This was
Trained marksman.
Yeah, a hired trained marksman. Did you ever get a look at any of these people?
No, we saw them drive their vehicles in. People were saying that they were coming in. They were really, really cautious to like stay away from view. But the following day, I mean, they were started to clean up process, and I think there was a bunch of them that were just like cutting bales and cutting the twine and making a mess and whatever. I don't know if they were the marksmen.
I remember seeing some of the photos of some of these guys, some of them with full-on face masks on, some of them not. I don't know if there was any requisite gear that they had to wear, but if there was, definitely some of them weren't wearing it.
Oh, yeah.
Has anybody figured, like, where would they find people like this? Like, are these just random hunters, like, looking for...
Well, they tried to recruit people from the town, from the gun club. There was a time where the CFIA person sort of in command of this had tried to recruit people from the town to be the shooters, and people, you know, the hate group, Facebook group, they were eager. So I don't know, but I do know now a lot more about who they hire for calls, because I have read through Animal Justice they're an organization. They released thousands of files on avian influenza response by CFIA. And so now I've read all of them, and I've read how much they spend on calls and how they do it. They have to do a full report afterwards of how it was done and all of it, their destruction, compensation, their just everything to do with their avian flu response. And they have actually hired companies that are convicted of animal abuse. Horrific, disgusting. I don't even want to say it in case my aunt is watching. Horrific, disgusting animal abuse towards birds as they are killing them. And they were actually convicted of it. This company is, they were called Integra, or they are called Integra now. They were sentenced to 3 years probation and increased audits by the CFIA, where they failed those audits, the biosecurity portion of it, failed by the same commander of our area. So she failed them and told them, you know, you guys are messing up your biosecurity, and if you keep doing that, we are not going to hire you anymore. So, and
that's
and
the
all of
penalty.
the
We're not
rules
going to
that
hire
they
you.
failed, they broke them all in front of us. Everything that they had failed that company. So that is a company that was actually convicted, and they just continued on paying them. I think they paid them $780,000 or something the next year after their conviction to do these calls.
What's the ultimate goal of this lawsuit, your family's lawsuit, Aly?
I just want to start making things right. I want balance back restored for what happened here. And I think that this is just the first domino, or maybe second domino, I guess, because they've already lost a tribunal for failing to issue that quarantine notice to my family correctly. And if they failed to issue a quarantine notice correctly to Karen, because they just simply emailed it and they were supposed to give it by hand, if they failed it and they didn't serve that properly, then they definitely didn't serve us properly, because we never got a quarantine notice at all. And I would just like any CFIA who did anything to break the rules here or bend the rules or anything like that, they all need to be held accountable for that.
Would it take an admission, just an apology? Like, what exactly? I mean, obviously, to go through, especially somebody who's suffering from PTSD right now, and your entire family is, to have to go through this prolonged court battle just for balance. And I totally understand how important balance is. But would an apology from them, some kind of a written statement publicly, would that
help? That would help. It'd be
it
a
would
starting
help?
point. It'd be a starting point. They need to make things right. They need to make things right with my aunt. They need to make things right in compensating her for what they took from her. And the people who broke the rules, they have ethical rules that are listed on their website of how their employees are supposed to behave and their conflicts of interest. They say that even the perception of a conflict of interest is enough to be a conflict of interest. And there were many there. I want all of that to be recognized, and I want it to be acknowledged. And I want anybody that broke these rules. I don't think that they should be in public service. They should be paid by
something that
taxpayers.
you guys probably don't know about Aly, that she's told me, and I think I knew this from before, is that you're a meticulous note taker and a taker of video, and you've got hours, maybe even days of video that will prove everything that you were saying. Have you gone through all of it yet?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I did. I rewatched and relived all of it. Yeah. In organizing it. And because it was happening all too fast. As things were happening, it was every day something absolutely crazy would happen. And so it was really hard to keep up with it all. I noticed that even before we got there, just from watching it all online, it was really hard to just take notes on what was happening. So I was doing as much as I could. I was recording everything. I was recording video diaries of what was going on for me, what my feelings were, what my parents were going through, what everybody was. I was just recording everything possible because I thought this is like a natural disaster and we have to prepare this for our insurance purposes. So yeah, I have it all.
Do you guys need support from the people, or are you not asking for that at this point? Like, what's the situation there?
We're not really. I don't know how to do that, especially with all of the aggression online. It people offer to support, and we're really, really grateful for that. I am, especially because it's really hard to function now. So I am grateful when people are supportive. I don't know how to really ask for that though. So we just.
So what do you need? Like, is there anything that people can do, even if it's just a message or something on social media, just to say hi? And
I really need therapy. That's what I've asked for. I really need therapy, and my therapist is really expensive and out of my budget. So if anybody wanted to help with the cost of therapy, I'd love that. But other than that, I think we need to keep spreading the message and telling people what happened here, and demanding accountability from our officials. I think we need to be still contacting everybody that we can contact. We need to contact the MPs. We need to contact everybody and just keep this in the focus.
I can suggest something, and
please.
your therapist.
Yeah.
Your therapist might be able to help you with symptoms of PTSD and whatnot because they're professionals. But what I can say is that you got to talk to people who are in the way of understanding, and I'm not just talking about that one particular incident. I'm talking about, everybody right now who's in this camp, who's in this wide awake and freedom and liberty camp. We've all had something happen to us. Yeah. We've all had that moment, right? And so we can totally understand, even though we may not have been there that one night that you've talked about this evening, we can totally understand it because we're fully aware of it and we've got our own feelings about it. And I'm thinking maybe it would be a good idea and I think there might even be social media groups out there that actually do get together on certain nights via video, and they talk about their experiences through this, and they come to the understanding that I'm not alone, which I think is probably the most important thing for people to be able to feel right now. And I know that you've got a great support group as well, but to hear that from strangers that you've never met before, but
Yeah.
you know that they're going through the same kind of thing. It's very, very calming for
It,
the inside.
it
And
is.
I can tell you that because I've been through it myself, like, and years and years and years ago. So
I do find the people that I do connect well with people who followed what was happening when it happened. You know, when you say like if you weren't there that night, there was a lot of people who were there virtually who held it on and sat through it and listened to all of it and followed it all. So I find that when I talk to people who knew what really happened, it is really comforting when they talk to us. We did put out a form for people after it happened, like, do you feel deeply affected by this, for people to fill out, and got 700 submissions of people of all different walks of life, of all different professions, you know, therapists and firefighters and just everybody who had been deeply affected by it, just all around the world, by what happened and how horrific it was.
wow, 700. And I'll bet you that
In like
more
yeah, build that up.
more would come.
Definitely.
You know, if you made that a point of getting it out there again, right? Like, because people are
Totally.
now, they're wondering, they're going to like, well, what happens next? So thank you for letting us know tonight, Aly, what happens next. I want to stay in touch with you and the family. And I think your aunt was saying, I talked to her on her birthday. So maybe a month and a half, I messaged her and said happy birthday to her and you know, thought about maybe coming back out again and doing something, you know, like just bring some people and let's try and have a party or something. But I know that it's different now.
It is. It is different. I mean, it's different. Langell Road separates, the ostriches were on the top and the house and everything is on the bottom. And once you cross up into that ostrich land, it is very, very different and very sad, and which sucks for us because we're on that same side of Langell Road. But my aunt's house is still as warm as it was before, and all of that, like, that part's still really nice.
Do you think that if we brought a couple hundred people out for a weekend, it would be a fun time, or would it be more of a...
It would be fun. Yeah. Yeah, it would be fun.
Well, then maybe we'll start thinking about that. We've got a whole summer in front of us, right?
Exactly. It'll be fun.
Aly, thank you for coming on tonight. And we're going to stay in touch and maybe come up with something that we can do to help out. And you guys can go ahead and find her on Facebook right there. You see, that's how it's spelled. Aly with one L.
That's right.
Find her on Facebook and make friends with her. Thank you, Aly. And we'll talk again soon. And don't forget to say hi to the family from all of us.
I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Good night. Aly Turnbull. Hadn't had her on before. Remarkable guest. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. Now, what I was going to do is the rest of the show, I'm just going to blow through this, if you guys don't mind, because there is some news that we do have to cover. Starting with this. This is good news. The Senate has voted down C9 amendments to criminalize residential school denialism. What you may not know is that a few days ago, when this bill went to the Senate Human Rights Committee, there was one Indigenous senator, I believe from the Northwest Territories, who said, you know, we need to make some amendments to this bill. And C9 is already bad enough. This is the hate speech bill. This is the bill that can get you in trouble, in jail time or heavy fines for quoting the Bible. In case you guys were completely unaware of that. Well, this one senator wanted to make an amendment for residential school denialism, and that passed the Senate Human Rights Committee a couple of days ago. Well, today, the Senate has voted down those C9 amendments to criminalize residential school denialism. The Senate voted down the amendments after the Senate's Human Rights Committee voted nearly unanimously to amend the bill to criminalize residential school denialism. The final count of that vote, by the way, was 7-1. And I want you to understand that if this had passed and they sent this bill back through the Senate for third reading, then back to the House of Commons, and then finally for royal assent, that would have been law in this country. Had you gone online or even said something privately to somebody else and they reported you, you could have been arrested for questioning the authenticity of the claims about residential schools, no matter what part of the residential school lie they've been telling. Like the 215 bodies found near that former residential school in Kamloops, which is a lie. Even the Globe and Mail finally came out after 5 years last Friday and said that they were wrong. 5 years later. The CBC still perpetuating that lie. You could have been criminalized. I could have been thrown in jail. Anybody could have been thrown in jail for questioning a lie. That's what our country is coming down to at this stage of the game. The sole conservative senator on the committee who voted on the motion, Senator David Wells, defended his choice to support the amendments to Juno News, but later noted that he voted against the committee's report, which struck them down. The Senate of Canada announced on X today the Senate had voted down the committee's third report, which attempted to criminalize residential school denialism and ban symbols of nooses and white pointy hoods, with 41 nays against 32 yays and 2 senators abstaining from voting. Indeed, freedom of expression is under attack. So here's where it is right now. Again, this is the progress, and you can do this with any bill that's in progress, like maybe C-22, which is also a problem for anybody who believes in free speech and privacy. So this is where we're at right now. The report stage completed today. Committee report defeated, and now it goes back to the House of Commons. Actually, no, it goes back to a full vote in the Senate, and then it goes back to the House of Commons. So we'll see what happens. And by the way, during this final third reading in the Senate, they can make more amendments. They can go ahead and say, well, wait a minute, hold on, before we go any further, maybe we could go ahead and tweak this and change that. Don't know if they will, but they can. From left-wing corporate CTV, ultimately fall on Canadian consumers through higher prices. Government orders review of the CRTC decision. The CRTC decision to go ahead and multiply by 3 the amount of money paid by big-time streamers to work in Canada, to be allowed to operate in Canada. So we're talking about YouTube, which is owned by Google. We're talking about Netflix. We're talking about Amazon. We are talking about big-time streamers. You probably watch them at home. You want to do a what's it called? Netflix and chill? Well, the CRTC, through the Liberal government, had decided that, 5% wasn't enough. 5% of their Canadian earnings in tax wasn't enough, so they were going to make it 15%. And the Conservatives, of course, spoke up and said that's absolutely ridiculous, but also the big streaming companies as well. And so the Liberals walked that back today. They walked it back. They actually admitted. Now, I do have some video here from one of the CPC MPs, Rachel Thomas, who was very adamant about fighting back against this particular move by the CRTC in committee. Here she is talking to media today.
After nearly 2 weeks of excuses and trying to mislead the Canadian public, the Liberals are now backpedaling and admitting that the Conservatives were in fact correct. The CRTC made a decision to triple the streaming tax from 5% to 15%, thereby making services like Disney+, Netflix, and Spotify more expensive to the Canadian consumer. The Liberals tried to mislead Canadians by claiming that it was out of their control. They could do nothing about it. Meanwhile, Conservatives continued to fight. We were told that we were making up a, quote, imaginary tax. The Liberals were content to sit back and do nothing as Canadians were burdened with yet another cost. Until Conservatives drew attention to the issue and pressure was applied, and thanks to our friends in the media, the message was out. But today, thanks to Conservatives holding them accountable, they are finally willing to admit their flaw. In fact, I brought a little show and tell. First one here, May 28th, the title reads, Liberals say they can't overturn decision tripling streamers' CanCon contributions. And then an update on June 3rd. The title reads, Ottawa calls for review of CRTC decision on streamers CanCon contributions. Complete change. In a news release from the Department of Canadian Heritage, the government stated that the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture would direct the CRTC to review its recent decision. They gave this instruction because, quote, the CRTC's new requirements would impose new costs on the companies providing these services, which could ultimately fall on Canadian consumers through their higher prices, end quote. Only after immense pressure from Conservatives have the Liberals finally decided to do something.
Well, in my opinion, that's not completely true, but we're going to get to that. Now, she did say that the Liberals said the tax was absolutely invisible. It's not there. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. And she's right. This is Government House Leader Steve McKinnon on the floor of the House of Commons last week.
Quite clear. Canadians deserve to have production, creation, and their stories told by Canadians, for Canadians, in Canada, by these global giant platforms. There is no tax. There is no tax, period. It is imaginary. It is fake. And this is the same people, Mr. Speaker, who want to defund the CBC, who want to kill our cultural industries, who want to take Canada out of every single piece of culture that we can.
There is no tax. And just today they say, you know what? We're getting rid of this tax. I'm confused. These Liberals, they don't stand for anything. Nothing at all. It's very interesting why they did this. The Conservatives are going to try and take credit for it and say, after relentless pressure, the Liberals finally decided to cave. That's not what happened. That's not even close to what happened. You want to know what really happened? I'll tell you what happened. Dominic Leblanc, our U.S. trade representative, went down to Washington last night. And I'm certain that he was told in no uncertain terms by Jameson Greer, who is the lead U.S. negotiator of trade when it comes to all countries, that he was told, unless you get rid of this ridiculous streaming tax, we are going to make your life absolutely brutal. More and more and more and more and more tariffs. And by the way, there was another tariff added this morning, Carney addressed, and we'll get to that. But then he probably said, we're not even going to bother renegotiating the USMCA. And if that happens, then Canada, it's over. There is no Canada anymore. So Dominic Leblanc was questioned by reporters last night and this morning. And I don't even know what he's talking about here. Watch. Maybe you can figure it out.
Optimistic. You acknowledge that the road ahead is going to have curves in it. It's not straightforward, but there is concern at home.
In terms of like getting to maybe a more formal round of negotiations.
How soon are we going to start having these more sort of formal USMCA discussions?
With Mexico concluding one formal round of talks and two more scheduled, and Canada, as far as I yet know, not having any formal talks scheduled, how are we not behind?
Have the Americans given you any indication of any obstacles before they're willing to say, hey, we're now in formal talks?
This trip has not been without some turbulence. We've all been in contexts where there's turbulence.
I do not underestimate the potential moments of turbulence that could occur in the next few weeks and months.
Don't take your seatbelt off and run up and down the aisle and kick in the cockpit door. You remain focused on the work that you need to do, and you come through the turbulence very much focused on the outcome.
I go back to my answer. That's part of the turbulence of our process here in Washington.
Sometimes you can have a very smooth ride with no turbulence, so I remain optimistic that we'll focus on the latter.
What is he even talking about? Anybody, please? Is it turbulence? Sometimes you have a rough ride. Sometimes it's smooth. Dude, why don't you just come across and say, look, you know what? We're working on negotiations. We hope to have a deal in place. We hope to be able to go to the table with the United States and Mexico and get this whole CUSMA thing sorted out. We'd love that. Instead, he's speaking in euphemisms in both official languages. He was dressed down last night, absolutely dressed down. And he was told, like I say, in no uncertain terms, that tax that you're putting on our business, our tech businesses, our streaming businesses up there, get rid of it. It's a massive trade irritant. And if you don't, then we're not going to make a deal. There won't even be discussions, the beginnings of discussions to make a deal. And the Americans won't be done there either, because you want to know what? They hate censorship. They hate bills like C9. They hate bills like C22, which is being debated and questioned in committee this week for the last couple of days. I give you Alex Surgener, who is an attorney with the Canadian Constitution Foundation, and he was talking in committee today about this ridiculous bill, which grants the government and police agencies a backdoor into your personal data, no matter who you are.
Our concern with this bill is longstanding, and it dates back to really the progenitor bill, Bill C2. And while we're pleased with the evolution there and the modest amendments and changes that followed, we remain concerned, even more concerned, in fact, about Bill C22, and that's why I'm here. The concern really is this, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but truly it's difficult to escape the inference that Bill C22 would establish a pretty powerful regime of surveillance and would constitute a pretty severe invasion into the privacy of everyday Canadians. Our concerns fundamentally are about the intrusiveness, the vulnerability, and the overall secrecy that this bill envisions. So allow me to identify exactly what I understand this bill requires. So-called core providers may be ordered to develop, test, and maintain technical capabilities for extracting information, and in particular, computer data. I'll get to that in a moment. This would be achieved in part by installing, using, and maintaining a prolonged and continued access, perhaps, to any given device. Now, the concern here, of course, is that it's not just so-called core providers. It's the fact that electronic service providers, which is an enormously, which carries with it an enormously broad definition, could, following a ministerial order, also be required to undertake those same acts that the so-called core providers are. So very quickly, an electronic service provider, and I'll define that in about 5 seconds, could also become a core, a core provider. So again, there's no reassurance that to be had in really defining those two terms differently. They're one and the same, and would be quite quickly. Now, what is an electronic service provider? It is any entity that provides business in this country or conducts a portion of its business in this country through electronic channels, be it through the internet or through perhaps software that's installed and kept locally on a device. So internet connectivity is relevant in that case. Now, at heart here, and this is really the pith of this, is the concern about metadata. Metadata is information about information. And so while the context of a text message might not be accessible, the fact that a text message, as an example, was sent could be accessed. To whom, when, how, all of that is fair game. The fact that a phone was used on the Hill in Ottawa and then 2 days later is in a library in Corner Brook and another day later finds itself in a hotel room in Saskatoon, all of that's fair game. We can, with this bill, monitor that, keep track of that, follow that. In other words, the entirely innocuous and inherently private comings and goings of ordinary citizens is up for grabs. Up to a year's worth of movement, communication, work, and ordinary life would be preserved for review, while the private citizen, of course, is kept completely oblivious as to this occurring or not. And though the bill says that no such order would be made if it would introduce a systemic vulnerability, I'm not particularly sanguine about that. The notion that only the bad guys, that only the good guys will have access to this flies in the face of examples from our peer nations in the Five Eyes who have suffered data breaches of exactly the sort that would constitute a systemic vulnerability. If the aim is to better investigate criminal activity, and I have some knowledge of this having worked as a criminal defense lawyer, so I've seen both sides of this, It's unclear to me why the proposed powers have to be so broad so as to capture basically every device in this country. The CCF would gently remind everyone of the terms public official and private citizen and the key distinction there. The importance of privacy cannot be overstated. Privacy is about dignity and autonomy, and these are the predicates of a free society. To have a truly free society, we must be free to make our choices without the sense of being monitored, and of course not even knowing that we're being monitored. I see that I'm at time, so once again I thank you for hearing our concerns and inviting me to participate in this critically important discussion.
Alex Surgener of the Canadian Constitution Foundation. Now, when we talk about walk around without the feeling of being monitored, that's good. Wait till you hear what's going on in Brampton. That's insane. But we've got Signal now. Have you got Signal on your phone? Signal. A lot of people communicate through Signal because it's encrypted and nobody can read what your messages are. Well, if C-22 passes, that means Signal is going to have to build a backdoor so the government can go and see what you've been doing through their app for at least the last year, all that metadata. And Signal says, well, that flies in the face of how we market ourselves. We are about privacy. So they're going to leave. They're going to leave Canada if C-22 passes. Watch this.
I just have two brief questions for you, which should probably just be brief in response. Is it fair to say that Signal's position, which you've laid out very clearly today, is not about resisting lawful access generally?
No. Signal's position is that laws should not compel service providers to start collecting information that they do not already collect.
Perfect. Thank you. So when Signal says it would exit Canada rather than comply, is that a decision triggered only by direct access to messages, or would metadata retention and system redesign requirements alone be enough to make compliance impossible?
The last two examples that you just stated would also be enough to make us not serve the market, as they would fundamentally change our product.
And you can bet other services, like any VPN, they'll all leave. Every single privacy tech that you can get for your computer, they're all going to go because it flies in the face of the service they offer, right? No more privacy, not for you, not for any Canadian, and no more freedom of speech either. Let's get back to that for a second, shall we? Kerry-Lynne Findlay, as you know, was recently, like this past weekend, elected as the Conservative leader of British Columbia. And she was having a conversation with Kian Bexty of Juno News. I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before. He's releasing segments of it online now. And he asked her about Bill C-9. We just talked about this, that hate speech bill, where they wanted to criminalize residential school denialism. Now, that amendment didn't pass, but who knows? They might try and bring it back. Here's what Findlay says about censorship.
One of the things you just mentioned was censorship. And just a few hours before we sat down for this interview, the Senate in Ottawa committee voted 7-1 to support the criminalization up to 2 years in prison for anything the government deems to be denialism about residential schools, whatever that means. It's not super clear. And one of the things that you've made pretty central in your platform is repealing DRIPA and sort of going back and looking at what has built this country and what are the issues for treaty people, for everyone else. And I'm wondering, how do you balance all this when Ottawa seems to be focused on plugging their errors and just deciding?
If a government feels they can only move forward by censoring their own citizens, we have a huge problem. And I think we do have a huge problem here in Canada, but in BC, I'm now the leader of the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I intend to take these issues to British Columbians and to win in an election with clarity and focus on these issues. I'm a negotiator by training and by nature, and I am hoping that we can have principled, accountable negotiations on these sensitive multi-layered issues and get to progress I'm imagining mostly through economic partnerships, that sort of thing, that benefit all British Columbians. But a government approach that is shutting down opposition through legislation, to me, that's coercion. And I simply don't agree with it. I'll fight it.
Okay, so we're getting good. We're getting more common sense, not necessarily conservative, because I don't want to use that word anymore, man. Like conservative, liberal, Democrat, whatever. There's common sense versus crazy at this stage of the game. There's good versus evil. And it seems to me we're getting more and more good people in the positions they need to be in to beat this nonsense back. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that we're going to be able to vote our way out of this completely, because the entire system has been infiltrated by the loonies and the evil quackadoos. But it's a start. It's a start. In the meantime, we've still got this ridiculous government in power, federally speaking. Now, there's new tariffs in play here from the Americans. It was just announced this morning. They've announced new tariffs over forced labor concerns. Now, this was Trump's way of getting around that court ruling that stopped him from enforcing these tariffs a couple of months ago. I think the Supreme Court ruled on that. And so he said, well, okay, we're just going to do it like this then. Any country that imports products from other countries through forced labor, meaning those products are made using forced labor, then we can go ahead and put tariffs on them. So what country in the world that you know of comes right to mind immediately uses forced labor to manufacture their products? I would say China and their Uyghur population. And Canada is now importing. We've got a deal with China. A deal, right? 49,000 EVs are coming or already here from China, and there's going to be other products from China coming soon. What do we get to do with them? Sell them some canola. Awesome. Is that worth more U.S. tariffs? I would say probably not. The U.S. has announced new tariffs of 10 to 12.5% on dozens of countries, accounting for almost all its imports over concerns they're not doing enough to tackle forced labor. It's the second time Donald Trump's administration has announced new import taxes since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down many of his previous duties in February. The U.S. Trade Department said these countries will face the tariffs because of their failure to address the importing of goods made with forced labor. Mark Carney was asked about that very thing this morning.
He can speak for himself. Minister Leblanc had very constructive discussions with his counterpart, Ambassador Greer, yesterday in Washington, along with our chief negotiator, Janet Charette. Secondly, with respect to these 301 tariffs, this is not a surprise. It's something that the U.S. has been planning for a few months. I think very importantly is that two things. One is that the tariffs are consulted for 30 days or 30-plus days. Secondly, explicitly in the decision, Canada, the carve-out for CUSMA is referenced and maintained. So that puts us in a position where, again, we would still have the best trade deal of any of the U.S. trade counterparts. I want to say as well that the issue, the motivation of the U.S. action, the 301 tariffs against, or proposed tariffs against a variety of countries, is something that we share. Canada has a very strong legislative regime against forced labor in supply chains. We don't want any element of forced labor coming in.
Except, of course, for those Chinese EVs, 49,000 of them. We'll take those, even if they were made with forced labor by Uyghur slaves. He's lying.
Goods and services, and we want to use our influence to eliminate this practice of forced labor and child labor. We have been preparing ways to reinforce the regime that we have. We made some changes earlier this year on things that candidly were not as effective, so there's ways we can change things legislatively. We'll be proposing that to the House in the coming weeks before the House rises, is our intention, and then taking steps to move forward on that. So, you know, when you boil down the action, we support the overall objective, the U.S. action, I should say, and I would note that, in effect, how it's drafted for the vast majority of Canadian trade, it will not have an impact.
Now I'm sorry for the audio, you guys. It's terrible. It sucks. But what he's talking about is, well, you know, most of Canada's, because we've got the best deal with the United States in the world anyway. We got Kuzma, right? So what he's talking about is that most of the products that we send to the U.S. won't be affected anyway because of USMCA, because of Kuzma. But here's the problem. Kuzma, we don't know what the Americans are going to do. Like, they're already, you know, through stage one of a bilateral deal with Mexico, and they haven't even started talking to Canada yet. Well, maybe they started yesterday when they told Leblanc, get rid of those taxes on the streamers or we're never going to talk. Maybe. But what if the Americans decide to come to the table? Because, you know, Kuzma, USMCA, is being renegotiated in less than a month. So what if the Americans come to the table and say, you know what? We're giving you notice, guys. We're giving you 6 months notice and then we're out. And everything that you send to us from that point forward is going to be subject to whatever tariff I see fit. And then Canada's screwed. So Carney is standing there talking to these reporters and saying, well, don't worry about anything because we've got Kuzma. We might not. However, it's nice to see that, you know, there's some sense in the Canadian negotiating team because they did reverse those taxes on the streamers today after I'm sure Leblanc was told to do that last night. If the Americans play hardball finally, then maybe we'll start getting some stuff going on. What I was talking about earlier, getting rid of all of this censorship nonsense. Okay, Trump is going to say, and it's not even Trump, it's J.D. Vance who's handling this particular area, right? He's going to say, all right, so you've got Bill C-11, you got Bill C-18, you got Bill C-22, you got C-9. All of these bills need to go. No censorship, nothing, or we're not going to do business. I'm sorry, we can't do business with an authoritarian regime, Mark. So get rid of all of this censorship nonsense because we believe in freedom of speech. I mean, he's already given the Europeans that spiel. It would not surprise me one bit if he starts giving Canadians that spiel in the next month or so, as it relates to renegotiating the USMCA. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, are we in a recession? Yes, we're in a technical recession. Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney had it out today. And here's what happened in the House of Commons. And this is actually quite telling about Mark Carney. Watch this.
The multinational corporations that he is profiting are very pleased with the way things are going. As for the Canadian people who are living under his recession, it's another story. They don't have $200,000 meals on 3 private flights, Mr. Speaker. They don't have tax havens so that they can shelter from the high tax burden he imposes on everyone else. He can't even bring himself to utter the word recession, even though the textbook definition tells us that he's the only prime minister, the only leader in the G20 who's created one. So will he stand in the House and answer the question, are we in a recession or a technical recession?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are in an economy that is fundamentally being transformed by a government that has a plan, to create a stronger, more independent, more resilient economy, a sustainable economy, an economy that moves from reliance to resilience. And Mr. Speaker, we are already seeing business investment, Canadian business investment up 10% in machinery and equipment. We are seeing our non-U.S. exports up on course to double. We are seeing the strongest inbound investment in Canada.
My question for the Prime Minister is about the human cost of Canada being the only G20 country in the recession. Zara from Toronto lost her administrative job at a real estate business. She can't find a new job and now has to sleep on a friend's couch. What's the Prime Minister going to tell her if he cares enough to stand up and answer? Is he going to tell her that she's just technically homeless and technically jobless?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to wish the Chief of the Opposition, Leader of the Opposition, a happy birthday. I hope his day improves.
This is not a joke. This is a woman's life. This prime minister gave us the only recession in the G20, and he stands up and starts joking about.
Now, you see, this is very interesting. Poilievre, you can tell that he's been put off by that remark, by Carney sloughing off that woman's situation. Because normally, these guys, they refer to the speaker, not just by name. Like they're actually looking at the speaker. They don't look at each other. It's kind of a house breach. It's unparliamentary, they say. And Poilievre has already been warned once or twice this week that his language was a little bit, a touch, maybe over the line. Now, there's nobody in the House of Commons that, maybe Andrew Scheer. Other than Andrew Scheer, there's nobody in the House of Commons who knows the rules better than Pierre Poilievre. He's been there for over 20 years. So to see him do this shows you, in my opinion, that he is very passionate about the story that he just told. And he is scolding the prime minister for responding as he did. Watch.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to wish the Chief of the Opposition, Leader of the Opposition, a happy birthday. I hope his day improves.
But this is not a joke. This is a woman's life. This prime minister gave us the only recession in the G20, and he stands up and starts joking about her state of affairs. She's sleeping on someone's couch, Mr. Speaker. You're the prime minister.
So listen to all the other liberals too, right? Yelling and screaming. They have absolutely zero respect for the people of this country or care. Poilievre gets up and tells a Canadian story. Now, it may or may not be true. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. It could be. And if it is, you'd better not, as a politician, stand there and call it down in Parliament. Are you kidding me right now? What kind of person does that? Here's a person that works, a full-time job. She's making $80,000 a year. She's sleeping on a friend's couch. She's in her 40s. Maybe she's got kids. Who knows? You don't know all of her circumstances. She can't get by on the money she's making. All the liberals yelling. That's not cool at all.
Stop being so flippant about the suffering that he's caused in the lives of Canadians, and tell Zara, is her homelessness and joblessness just a technicality?
You can see McKinnon sitting across the way there, the government house leader, the one that lied about the fact there's no taxes on streamers or no new tax, whatever it was. He's sitting there smiling, smirking. What's the matter with these people? How out of touch, how tone deaf do you have to be? And even with all of the nonsense that's going on in our country right now, the crime, the gun grab, the climate change BS, the money laundering for Brookfield, all of it. There's a poll out there. There's a new poll came out today. Now, this is one of the reasons that I no longer believe in them. There's no way, unless most Canadians are completely idiots or just not paying attention, that this could be. That's a big number. Carney's Liberals hit record high 50% support. 50. You guys got to understand that a strong number for any one political party in Canada is 40%. Very strong. 50? Almost unheard of. The Carney Liberals, even with everything, the floor crossing nonsense, the backroom deals, now have the support of half of all Canadians, according to a new Post-Media Leger poll. The first time any governing party has hit that benchmark in popular support in more than 2 decades. The poll conducted over the last week found that 50% of decided voters said that they would most likely support the Liberals if federal elections were held today. The poll found that the Conservatives have the support of 34% of Canadians, down 3 from April. Both the NDP and the Bloc are at 6% support, even though there's a different poll that came out earlier this week that says the NDP is at 13. Another poll says they're at 15 because of Avi Lewis. Why? I don't know. The Green Party, 3%, up 1 percentage point. The percentage of Canadians who now say they'd likely support one of the two major parties is almost identical to the historically high 85.1% who did so during the last federal election, when the dominant issue was how Canada should respond to the trade and sovereignty threats of Donald Trump. That's the state of our country right now. That's why the West, especially Alberta and Saskatchewan, feel so alienated, because there's nothing that they can do to get back to common sense. You can go ahead and vote conservative all you want, federally speaking. As a matter of fact, almost every MP from Alberta is a conservative. Same with Saskatchewan. And what does that get you? Opposition. What are you going to do? Now, Pierre Poilievre says, well, you know what? When there's conservatives in power, we really stabilize the country, bring it back together again. Look at what Stephen Harper did. Yeah, okay. That's great. When's the last time you were in power? Oh, 11 years ago? Awesome. Are you ever going to be back in power again? No. What's Mark Carney doing? Celebrating Pride Day. Making us build carbon capture devices that nobody else in the world is building at a cost of $30 billion just so we can have a pipeline? Just so we can sell our product to the world and make everybody money? And we got to go through regulatory nonsense, and we got to go through the Indians, and we got to go through this, and we got to go through that. Oh, and by the way, property is a problem in BC right now. You might not own it, even though you have technically owned it for the last 30 or 40 years. Now, there's a court decision. Might change everything. We don't know. What are the Liberals doing about it? Not much. And if they truly do hold 50% of the popular vote in this country, then Alberta needs to go. This country needs to separate. It does. Because it just can't continue like this. The West cannot be subservient to the East anymore. It's just, the West is outgrown that relationship. That's how this relationship was started. But it's long since past due. So either Alberta becomes independent or joins another country. Maybe, I don't know, something like China. Not China. You guys know who I'm talking about. Got a couple more things here before we wrap it up for the night. And that is this story here. New 360-degree cameras in Brampton. And apparently they're helping police solve crimes, according to the mayor, Patrick Brown. Here's a CBC piece on it.
A very clear goal in Brampton, and that is to make our city and Peel region the most inconvenient place in the country to commit a crime.
In a new collaborative effort between the city and Peel Police, 50 of these security cameras have been installed across Brampton with a goal of reducing crime. The cameras show a 360 view of an area through the use of 4 omnidirectional lenses, getting a full picture of a spot like an intersection to capture scenes of crimes in real time. It isn't brand new technology, but what's different is the integration of live monitoring from police.
These pieces of technology transmit right into our Community Safety Operations Center in real time. That is, we have a human in the loop monitoring what is happening when they are notified of an incident.
The mayor says the community was consulted through a telephone town hall with just under 8,000 participants and had a very positive response. He says the only people who should be concerned about the technology are the ones committing crimes.
We've heard loud and clear that the vast majority of the city wants us to use new technology, wants us to use cameras. In the case of these cameras, over 84% said absolutely. They wanted to see cameras rolled out in the city. There was very little opposition to this, understanding that any privacy that is lost is only for those committing criminal acts. And if they want to protect their privacy, don't commit a crime in Brampton.
Peel police say the cameras have already assisted in over 200 investigations, including 2 homicide cases, leading to arrests. Some community members say the trade-off of higher surveillance for better public safety is worth it.
Crime is not something anyone really wants, so to sort of combat this, something has to be implemented, and this is just one of them.
Will feel me safer, like, okay, I'm being watched, it's here, and if something's gonna happen, everything's being recorded.
With growing population, with sophisticated crime, all this is necessary now.
The hope is that this technology can help improve investigative efforts. The city also mentioned devices like drones that can immediately go to scenes and show footage of what's happening in real time before officers arrive. The hope is that the improvement of this technology will help keep people safe.
Yeah, of course. Let's have a look at what's going on in Brampton these days. It's recently seen a surge in extortion, organized crime targeting local business owners, largely within the South Asian diaspora, India. In a coordinated 2026 crackdown, police arrested 17 men, with 12 from Brampton, linked to a gang known as Four Brothers, which was responsible for shootings and arson. Many of the accused are temporary residents. Oh, they've got an extortion task force and everything. Recent crime incidents, gang activity, and the immigration status of suspects in Brampton involve, okay, so the extortion task force. What else have we got here? Immigration status of suspects. Substantial number of those arrested are non-citizens who arrived in Canada on temporary visas. Okay, so before we get, too far down that road, all I'm saying is you bring in the third world, you become the third world, and then you put everybody under 360 surveillance. Boom. Isn't this exactly what we've been talking about for the past 5 years? You create the problem, and you've already got the solution in hand. And this solution is for your safety, just like every other one. Don't worry, we got it covered. We're going to be monitoring everybody, everywhere, all the time. So, getting back to the Americans, are they doing the same thing? Oh, yeah, sure. AI data centers going up everywhere. Everywhere. We talked about that on the show last night. By the way, if you're not a member at ShadoeDavis.com, if you're not an all-access member at ShadoeDavis.com, you can become one, either monthly or yearly. Just go to the website, Shadoe Davis, just like it's spelled right there, ShadoeDavis.com. Buy your membership. And we'll see you for the regular show, which is weeknights at 8 o'clock Central every single night. Sometimes we do come out here on social media when we have guests and we want to get their story out. But the regular show goes on the all access website, ShadoeDavis.com, every single weeknight at 8 o'clock Central. And also in the Telegram group, the Shadoe at Night community. You can go ahead and find us there as well. Again, you can go ahead and join monthly or yearly. So in the United States, Scott Bessent is the Secretary of the Treasury, and he was asked today, Mr. Secretary, people are very concerned about digital ID and digital currency. Are we going to do that here?
A lot of our viewers are increasingly worried that digital currency could one day be used to track people's spending or limit personal freedom. What's your philosophy on that, and what safeguards is the Treasury and this administration putting in place to make sure new digital payment systems protect Americans' privacy and freedoms in the future?
Well, so this administration has been very clear. There will be no central bank digital currency, which I think would be the first step toward tracking. So we have taken that off the table. We've passed stablecoin legislation with bipartisan, and the Clarity Act is now up on the hill, and I think it has bipartisan support. And the most important thing we can do is to make digital assets come into the United States, make the U.S. the home. Our regulation, our best practices are what will ensure good standards for these. When you look at digital assets, all the nonsense that happens, all the things you read about, that's because it's the wild, wild west offshore, so we got to bring it on shore. So I would encourage the House and the Senate to get clarity done. Jack? Public-private
partnerships. Remember, so if the American government says, we're not doing that. Watch out for Apple. Watch out for Google. Watch out for the big techs who are going to be doing it for you. The Apple wallet, the Google wallet. You start paying like that, and they team up with the banks and the credit card companies, and next thing you know, you've got a digital ID. It's not a government-issued digital ID, at least not yet. But then maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, they say, you know what, we're partnering with the government for your safety. And we've got all of this information, this digital information on you anyway. We're just going to team up with the government, put it all together, and really make things safe out there. Boom, it's over. No digital ID ever from anybody. Never accept it, because if you do, they're going to have everything. Everything. That's it for tonight, you guys. I love you all. I appreciate you all. I thank you for your support. You have a great sleep tonight. Have a great day tomorrow at All Access Nighthawks. I will catch you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another one. Bye for now.